Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. It's first day of the work week. Get that out of the way, and we have some Champions League football to discuss.
That we do. We are just hours away from the return of the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Very excited about that. 8 really solid teams for big time matchups. I love that we're starting with the road teams, just to kind of add a little spicy spice to the tie. I think I maybe have some predictions that you could be pretty surprised about. Can't wait to unleash those. But with that said, 4 big matchups, Mr. Grand Angle, where do you want to get started?
You know what? It's St. Patrick's Day. I don't think either of us are Irish, but it's okay.
Not in the slightest.
We're talking some football on a Monday. The Champions League is back. We might as well crack some brewskis. Sounds
Cheers
great.
to that.
Cheers to you. So, I think it only makes sense. Chronological order. Both of your teams tugging at your heartstrings. You're a man conflicted. You're a man with a foot on each side of the aisle in this match. Let's talk about Real Madrid versus Arsenal.
Love it. Yep. A rock on one side, hard place on the other. I want to start with Real Madrid. So, I want to say I was really hoping that this was going to be the season where they were going to kind of turn a corner. We talked about all of the great talent that they added, but I think the same issues, they could be, I think, pretty optimistic making the quarterfinals, which they didn't do last year, but sure. 3 straight matches versus Barcelona, 3 big losses, combined score 13-1. That's got to hurt. In their last 4, they're 1 win, 1 draw, 2 losses, including those 2 to Barcelona, as mentioned. And then their most recent matchup versus Deportivo La Coruna, they fall behind in that one twice. 1-0 in the 24th minute, 2-1 in the 62nd. They need an Olga PK in the 82nd to scratch out a draw. I don't know, man. Is it just not in the cards for Real Madrid? Do they need maybe a bigger, more foundational shakeup? Or do you feel like they might be coming into tomorrow's matchup, I don't know, but with something to prove it and maybe a more hopeful tone?
I think that's an interesting thing that happens in football, right? Is that sometimes, you have some bad losses and then, people start counting you out and people start drawing grand conclusions about these kind of things. And then they can show up and play well. But to your first point, these matches against Barcelona, that first leg of the Copa de la Reina semifinal against Barcelona, they just get cracked 5-0. It's not competitive. Bayern-Lyon scores in the 2nd minute. I think Payor scores in the 13th minute. Madrid took that kickoff, go downfield, Barcelona intercepts it, and then, like I said, within a minute 30, Bayern-Lyon is just smashing in some long diagonal cross, and they're just out of it right away. You could hear it in the crowd. It was a mixture of silence, and I think you could hear one person in the crowd just go, "No!" Because it just keeps happening versus Barcelona. I don't know how long. Obviously Real Madrid, they formed their women's club. They kind of microwaved it. I think they bought another club and then absorbed them. But as far as our pals over at FootMob go, the recent record versus Barcelona for Real Madrid is 0 wins, 0 draws, 15 losses.
Oh my God. That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's a mental situation right there. That's a mental hurdle that you cannot get over. We saw Levante beat Barcelona. We saw, Benfica obviously draw them last season. It's not, it's a great team, but not a 0-15 type team when you're Real Madrid and you've got, somewhat deep pockets of your own and world-class players of your own as well.
Yeah, you just got to do better there. But no offense to your Gooners, they're not Barcelona. You guys have great players as well. I don't even know when I say you guys in this matchup. I don't even know who I'm describing at this point. But Arsenal has great players too. But I think it's an opportunity for Real Madrid to just pick themselves up. You mentioned the draw this weekend. They just got to stop falling behind. We've talked about this, and they've been able to recover from it in certain other fixtures. you're never going to be able to do that against Barcelona, and you'll be putting yourself in a really tough spot if you do it against Arsenal.
I think so. And I think when you look at this Real Madrid side, where they're probably vulnerable, I think is in the defense, probably in the center of the field for sure. Maria Mendez and Antonia at center back, some combination of defensive midfielder, Felipe Angodal, Sandy Toletti, Caroline Weir. Those aren't players that defensively strike a ton of fear, into
Right.
opposing attackers. I think with Renee Slagers and Arsenal maybe kind of stumbled onto an interesting front four with Alessia Russo at the 9, Marione on the left, Frida Manum at the 10, Chloe Kelly on the right, who's been
Sure.
getting more and more minutes and I think developing more and more chemistry. I think that four has the potential to provide real problems for that Real Madrid defense. And if they do come out flat, it could be 2-0, 3-0, 3-1 at the half kind of situation. Because Arsenal's a team that it's not a front running kind of team, but once they get cooking, a Caitlin Ford, develops confidence when she sees Alessia Russo do something, and then Blackstenius might come in, and you might see some Beth Mead minutes, and I think they definitely pick up. They definitely snowball in momentum as an offense. So I think from that standpoint, this Real Madrid defense and this Real Madrid kind of like, I don't want to say mental makeup, but sort of like their proclivity to kind of fall behind. That is something that maybe represents maybe like a lack of focus or just not able to kind of like stay locked in from the first minute. Could be a real problem for Madrid.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they notched the 3-1 win over Everton over the weekend. Passing lanes were wide open. I think some of that is Everton's defense. I think some of that is what Arsenal was able to do with their movement. Emily Fox has really, I know she's always had some of this in her game, but it feels like the past month she's been on a real heater in terms of her passing ability, getting way forward. She's dangerous inside the 18, playing players in, ripping shots herself. Like she's looked super confident lately. And if Real Madrid is going to be out here, kind of fucking around the way they have been, it is a recipe to potentially lose 3-1 to Arsenal in their own building.
I think that's super live for sure. I'm just checking out Emily Fox, 26 years old at this point. She's probably at that age and at that stage in her career where it's like, I'm ready to take a leap. Like obviously she believes that, I think she lost out to some minutes, but there was a lot of like, rotation there. But I don't know that her spot on the U.S. Women's national team is fully cemented. It's close. And I think for this Arsenal side, obviously they've got McCabe on the other side. They've got Neisschwanger. Like they've got good players that could, also, push for some minutes. And I think Fox has that in her game. We've seen her score spectacular goals. I think the passing, it'd be great to see that continue to evolve, but she's got the skills to do it. Now it's just about like in big spots against big teams. Can you actually make that happen? Now I'm glad you brought up like the left back, right back situation, because Fox on one side, McCabe on the other. Both of those players have the tendency to kind of work their way upfield, mosey around the park a little bit, kind of explore the space, for all the theater kids. I think they have, that tendency to do that. That could open things up for Atenea, Senior Brune, Alba Redondo, if she's in the game, Linda Caicedo, who head coach Alberto Toril said that, would be ready for tomorrow's battle against Arsenal. So I think that would be one thing to watch, in addition to Steph Catley at center back, who has also been vulnerable. So, if you're watching the defense, I think, there is a potential for Arsenal to get a little bit over exuberant on offense and maybe leave some space behind for some of those dangerous Real Madrid attackers.
I think that's totally fair. And, that's just how it happens in football. I alluded to it a little bit, but you see a match or you see a team have a bad stretch of matches and you're like, okay, I guess this is who they are. And it's hard for the human brain to sometimes be able to square these things and be like, well, it could have been a bad day for multiple players at the same time, yada, yada, yada. I think, to your point, this match, probably of the four, probably has the widest range of possible outcomes. Like you could see a big Arsenal win by 2 goals. I think you could see a draw in this one, and Real Madrid just comes out like make Caroline Weir scores a banger early. Linda Caicedo shakes loose and runs by defenders on a counter or something like that. I think that's all possible, just as much as it's possible of Arsenal getting like squeaking out a 1-0 win in just like a weird grinded out match. I just think this is going to be one of the most interesting matches of the 2 days for sure.
I think I fully agree with that. I could see, man. I think if Madrid's going to win this one, it's not going to be 1-0. It's going to be more like a 3-2, sort of shootout.
Yep.
But on the flip side, I totally agree. Arsenal could hang 3 on this Madrid side as well, and then really kind of lock them down. But I think there will be space. Madrid will get opportunities. You want to make a prediction?
Everton. No, yeah, sure. I like how I just look at my screen and say, yeah. I think, Ali Sentnor scores. No, let me say, give me Arsenal 2-1.
Okay, I like it. I'm going to go Arsenal 3-1. I think they kind of like big girl this Real Madrid side.
Okay, I like it.
Let's fast forward. This one, tasty matchup, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Bayern Munich will host the finalists from last year, Olympique Lyonnais. I'm going to say this is my most anticipated matchup of the 4. I'm really, really excited about this one. What are you going to be looking for?
Bayern Munich came out really swinging in that match versus Wolfsburg on Friday. I was able to avoid spoilers, so I didn't watch it until Saturday night, until after all the NWSL action was over, and I managed to avoid all spoilers. And I sat down and watched, and
Nice.
even though Bayern ended up winning 3-1 over Wolfsburg, that was a hell of a game. I don't think Wolfsburg played poorly in it. I just think Bayern looked great. Like they were running into space. They looked fast. They looked decisive. They were playing passes, like long passes on the ground, which I thought was interesting. The announcer had noted, I think if I understood him correctly, he had noted that Wolfsburg won 70% of aerial balls in their previous matchup. And as soon as he said that, it was like Bayern was making a concerted effort to play most of their passes on the ground, and they were kind of frying Wolfsburg with that adjustment. So I thought that was really interesting, and they're going to need every bit of luck and skill, and luckily they have a lot of great players, but they're going to need everything to beat Lyon, even in Germany, I think.
Yeah, I think watching that Bayern-Wolfsburg matchup, interesting to hear that you kind of felt like those teams were close, because I felt like Bayern was well in control of that one. And, not necessarily, they didn't necessarily dominate, but I don't think at any point they were any kind of afraid of Wolfsburg coming in there and beating them. I mean, Pernille Harder, she's in insane form this season. You combine her Frauen Bundesliga and Champions League appearances, that's 23 total, 17 goals, 2 assists. And this is a player that steps up in big games. 2 goals versus Wolfsburg in this most recent matchup. She scored twice she scored in 2 different matches against Juve in the Champions League, scored against Vålerenga, scored against Eintracht Frankfurt when definitely needed that one. And then obviously hung a hat trick on my Arsenal in the group stage. So this is a player, I mean, cooking, absolutely cooking. You look at Clara Bull, 6 goals, 11 assists for her and 23 appearances for the 24-year-old. And then Julia Gwyn, I think 25-year-old defender. She's just flat out one of the best players in the world for me. She can do everything. She's just electric. And I think I was a little lower on Bayern after the Georgia Stanway injury. I was like, okay, well, they're sunk. No way to kind of get around that. But I think they've kind of plugged the hole pretty effectively. I think Zadrazil's been good in the midfield. Caroline Simon has gotten more opportunities to kind of like put service into dangerous areas. And you already know, like, they've got the finishers to kind of like really hurt you, whether it's Schuler or Damjanovic they're just loaded. And I'm going to save it for my predictions, but suffice it to say, I think Bayern is super live at home against Lyon.
Okay, sure. I like it. I mean, I look forward to hearing more about this. Yeah, Georgia Stanway, she had the surgery on her LCL last month. So I think it's still going to be, or is about 30 days ago. So she still has several months until she comes back. Shout out to our pals, Blue and Gulshan in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let's talk Lyon. Because I mean, you're out here talking a little reckless already. I don't know where you're going. Lyon has played 3 league matches in the last month, and again, we always say this with the caveat that Premier League Arkema in France is not the most competitive league. But in those 3 matches in the last month that Lyon has played, they've won by a total of 19-1. That's including their recent 8-1 drubbing over Reims on Friday. All the usual things happened in that 8-1 victory over Reims. Hegerberg brace, she scored in the 5th minute to open the proceedings. Dumornay got a goal. Wendy Renard headed in a goal. And Ellie Carpenter got a brace. Okay, so maybe not all the usual things. That one was a bit unusual. But Lyon they just look like a flying death machine right now. They're faster than everybody. They're striking the ball better than everybody. They just look like they're on a mission coming off that heartbreaking loss in last year's final.
Yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 with you. I think you zoom out and I agree with you. I think this team's going to be there late into this tournament, and they certainly have the firepower to do that. I just do question, they kind of, skirted through the group stage, no problem. I mean, they're obviously dominant, but I definitely feel like this matchup in Munich might be their toughest test of this season, and I think that's kind of saying a lot, considering that, they do play in France, and then obviously they survived the group stage. I'm going to be looking towards, Melchi Dumornay to see if she can really kind of like stamp herself into this Champions League. Chewinga on one side, Diani on the other. We'll see. I got to mention Hegerberg gets a start. Defensively, obviously Lyon's rock solid. They're going to really make it tough for Bayern to score, just because they're so disciplined. Renard and Gio back there, but Carpenter out on the wing. I'm sorry, Carpenter out wide. Does have the tendency to kind of, work her way upfield. Bosch on the other side as well, or Svava if she plays. So that those could be some opportunities. I think the real key is now you got me thinking about those passes on the ground, and you can just picture, Clara Boule, just dealing from that standpoint. And then, maybe kind of catching Lyon a little bit off guard, just because I don't think that they've really faced this level of competition. They've almost been playing 25 or 30 preseason type matchups, and now they're going into a bit of a cauldron in Germany.
I think that's fair. I mean, they had the 2 matches versus Wolfsburg in the group stage. Won the first match. They opened the group stage winning that one 2-0. They closed the group stage winning 1-0. And you know what? You kind of opened my eyes to that. I think you're probably right that at Bayern in a quarterfinals got to be the toughest test for them this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, what they look like against Bayern's game plan. Man, let's get to the prediction. Wait, let me get my prediction. Let me get my prediction out of the way. I think it's a 2-0 victory. We haven't even. I want to give the credit. Lyon's defense is just suffocating right now. Like they're scoring on you, but they also just don't let you do anything without a lot of pressure. So maybe I'm too high on Lyon. I guess we're going to find out tomorrow. But I'm saying 2-0 Lyon in Germany, and they just stamp themselves and let it be known we're here to win this tournament.
Yeah, I like that. I could definitely see that happening. That's a very live outcome. I'm going to go 2-1 Bayern. I'm going to say that maybe they get an early goal. Maybe Harder catches Lyon sleeping a little bit early. They go up 1-0, and now they get real cagey. Now it's like, okay, let's protect it. This is their only real shot. I think they've, if you're Bayern, you got to feel good. Obviously, they missed out on the quarterfinals last year. They are playing from behind in Frauen Bundesliga, make up that ground, and now we're firmly in the driver's seat in that league.
Yep.
And this is sort of like, it's not quite win or go home, but you're going to have to go to Lyon next week. You don't want to go in behind the eight ball. Otherwise, what's the point? So I think we're going to get Bayern's best tomorrow. I can see harder scoring early. I can see the game getting real, like nip and tuck. And then maybe Bayern pulling out some magic late. A couple other players to kind of keep an eye on, or maybe one player to keep an eye on. Alaris the Hitler, who our guy Peter Vicey kind of like shouted out early in the proceedings. I was shocked. She's still only 18 years old. I think she's like 18 years old in like 100 something days, according to FBref. Super fluid athlete. She kind of moves a little bit like Melchi Dumornay, and then also a little bit like Lily Johannes, like just very fluid as an athlete and very fluid as a football mind too. She can kind of make passes, distribute, makes good decisions. I mean, tremendously good decisions for a young player. So that's a player that I think not a ton of tape on, could kind of surprise Lyon. But yeah, I'm going to rock with 2-1 Bayern Munich tomorrow.
Okay, I love it. I mean, I love how bold that is. Our pal Toros in the comments, thanks for hanging out with us, agrees. Says they think Bayern could win in Germany, but they might not have enough over two legs. I think that's super live as well.
I like that.
Alara, they talked about her on the broadcast that she's just been going by Alara recently because some idiots have kind of co-opted her last name on social media over there. But yeah, Alara, 18 years old, born in 2006, November 27th, 2006, which makes her a Sagittarius for anybody who keeps track of those kind of things. Not sure what it means in the footballing sense, but she has looked absolutely dynamite recently.
Yeah, no, Sagittarius, Scorpio, right on the cusp there. So I could see, all the duality in her game for sure. All right, let's skip ahead. Wolfsburg against the champs, Barcelona. This one's going down Wednesday, 1:45 p.m. Eastern. We just saw Wolfsburg, kind of fall to this Bayern side. We've been tracking, Barcelona for the better part of a couple of years here. Where's the first place? I mean, obviously this is a very imbalanced matchup, probably the most imbalanced of the four, or at least that's kind of where I stand. What are you going to be looking for, maybe from Wolfsburg or from Barcelona? Where's the first place your eyes are going to lock in on this one?
I think it's got to be, like, you got to have a Beerenstein game, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, just to even have hope to stay in it. They couldn't beat Mahmudovic, which I guess, or Makhmudovic, pardon me, which we didn't talk about much when we talked about Bayern, but she looked great in goal against Wolfsburg, and they just couldn't beat her. So they need to take care of their chances. Alex Pop in that Bayern match, a lot of talking to the refs, which I know is not new for Alex Pop. I've kind of come to figure that out over the last few years. But you're just not going to have any room for that against Barcelona. The margin for error is already tiny. We talk about it every time we talk about Barcelona. You can't be yelling at the refs up and down the field. You have to be 1,000,000,000% locked in at all times if you're going against Barcelona. And even if you have a tiny chance of winning. I think this one could get ugly late because I don't want to disrespect Wolfsburg too much. I think they obviously have a talented squad, but this might be one of those ones where the scoreline stretches after the 75th minute.
I agree with you on that, and we'll see what kind of lineup Romeo rolls out for Barcelona. When you look at this Wolfsburg side, one thing that's sneaky interesting about their lineup, this is a young team. Their average age for the last matchup against Bayern was 26 years old. And that's including the three senior players, Alex Pop, 33, Sven Juhut, 34, and Lenneth Beerenstein, 28. So those are your three vets that are over 25. Everybody else is 25 and under. And they've got a bunch of 22s and 23s on that side. When you look at Wolfsburg defensively as well. You need Aminga, Sarai Linder, Caitlin Dykstra struggled against Bayern, unfortunately. And either
Yeah.
Vivian Endemann's probably got to drop or Lynn Williams on the other side. They're going to have their hands full for sure against Barcelona. I don't want to say they're necessarily in real trouble, but if they struggle to kind of contain that Bayern side, I think Barcelona's going to come in, and there's a good chance there's going to be Wolfsburg heads just spinning, trying to keep up with that Barcelona attack.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. You're spot on. Lost my place in my notes. This is why we don't do the show live all the time. You're right on about Caitlin Dykstra and James Thurgood, who is very quickly becoming one of my favorite announcers in football.
Our guy.
Was our guy, absolutely, our future pal, because we're going to get him on the show at some point if he's kind enough to join us. He was not shy about Caitlin Dykstra kind of falling asleep on one of those goals, which it's just what happened. And I think Dykstra has comported herself pretty well over the course of the season. But if you do that against Barcelona, it's like a 99% chance they'll convert, and then you cannot play behind the eight ball against them.
Yeah, because it's they're not going to give up much on the other side either. With Mapi and Torrejon, and just kind of like what they're set up, and then even Katakoi, super experienced, World Cup experience, Champions League winning experience as a keeper. So if you do somehow get all the way past, Katakoi is a big gamekeeper. Like you just trust her. I mean, shot stopping, she's right up there with some of the best. There's a reason why she's just kind of like sharpened into that position for them. And then Barcelona just on the attack, like whether it's like, I don't know, Eva Paior facing her old club where she played 8 seasons, 96 goals, 121 appearances during her time at Wolfsburg. You look at what she's been able to do for Barcelona, 16 goals, 18 appearances. So she's cooking. Sydney Schertenleib, the 18-year-old.
Come on.
Against Tenerife, she had the highest FOTMOB rating, 8.9 for an 18-year-old in a proper Liga F match. I mean, that's wild. And they start her on the left, Vicky Lopez on the right. Think of just how much youth that is.
Yeah.
How much big-time experience those players are gaining. So as players age out, they're just developing. They're doing it so intelligently from a personal standpoint. Like I think since I've been watching Barcelona, yes, they're loaded, but I feel like every match there's one or two. You could never predict their lineup, I feel like. And I think, that in a tournament like this is really going to pay dividends.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great point about their lineup. I mean, I think in the Tenerife match, Aitana Bonmati, 2-time Ballon d'Or winner, comes in to start the second half. Okay, cool. That's great. I feel great about that. And the player she replaced, Alexia Putellas, who scored the opening goal. So it's just like, I don't know what you even do with this lineup. You're so right about Schertenleib. She had 2 assists in that match. Could have had 3 if another chance had got put away. She has been absolutely on fire recently, and it's just another nuclear weapon that this team has that they're just able to deploy as they see fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, super excited to see what Barcelona looks like and see how they kind of get warmed up, because you think about that attack, whoever it is on the wings, Bariuelo, CGH, or the youngins. I mean, as they stretch out that Wolfsburg defense, that's going to leave space for either an Aitana in the middle, Batri, Pina, or Paior, even worse, like farther upfield. I think they're going to have this. They're going to. I don't know. We can make a prediction now. I think I'm with you. I think it does get a little ugly. I'm going to go. Oof. I don't know how I feel about this, but I'm going to do it. This is where my heart's at. I think it's 5-0 Barcelona. I think it's a proper smashing.
Okay, I like it. And nothing against Wolfsburg. I just like the pick. I'm also going to predict 5 goals. I'll say 4-1 Barcelona. I think Wolfsburg gets one at home, but I don't think the result's ever in doubt.
Yeah, I like that. All right, so some good alignment there. The alignment continues. And shout out to everybody rocking with us. Toros, who mentioned Golshan. Blue, you already know. Carlo, you already know. Those are our guys. Casey Flip and Fold, welcome to the party. Not a name I recognize, but you already know. according to Casey Flippenfold. We rock with you guys in Kansas City, KC baby. We rock with KC as well. Great NWSL squad, pretty decent barbecue. So you already know what time it is.
That's my NWSL championship pick. So and it's honestly Kansas City, Missouri is a city that I have not been to in the United States of America that I absolutely want to go to, and the atmosphere in their home stadium makes me want to go there even more. And now that we have the KC Flippenfold cosign, we got to figure out a way to get out there eventually. So yeah, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I passed through Kansas City, spent one night there, hit a jazz club, some good food, rock. Spent 18 or so hours there. Very cool vibe, like very unique vibe. So hopefully, nice. Hopefully our foray into women's football, takes us there at some point. Toros in the chat. I think Wolfsburg's hopes are with a doing it for Stroot approach mentality. There's a lot of motivating factors in this world. Doing it for Stroot, I don't know, maybe not in the top 10,000 of motivating factors. Or maybe maybe there's some interesting Stroot stuff that I'm not sure about. Maybe I hope he doesn't have some terrible disease and now I just look like a total ass. But either way, I don't think it's going to matter. I think Barcelona does what they do and heads back to Spain with a healthy lead.
I believe he is leaving Wolfsburg at the end of the season. Toros, please correct us if we're wrong here. I think that's what's happening, and maybe that's why they would do it for Stroot. But yeah, you gotta have some kind of motivation going in there. It's just when you look across the field and there's Puteas and Bonmati and Mappy Leon, Eva Payor, it's Selma Pariuelo. It's like, okay, we got to do it for somebody. Let's try.
All right, so we'll watch that one. And now the big one. Manchester City versus Chelsea. Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Coming off, that League Cup final. I want to start here. Do you feel like it's better for City how that League Cup final went? Do you feel like it's worse? Like, what's that? Where do you land on this?
It's such a good question. It's such a good question because I don't know, man. Like on one hand, I was like, okay, we looked pretty good. We concede in the 8th minute to Mayra Ramirez, and then we ended up kind of like holding tough. You get the equalizer on the Fujino banger. You had City had more of the ball. They had more shots, 17-12. They had more shots on target, 6-5. They had more corners, which I think is surprising against a team like Chelsea sometimes. 6-2, City had the advantage there, and so I was like, okay, like they could hang with them. But then on the other hand, City played well, and they could hang. And again, I go back to it. I don't mean to like beat this dead horse, but the margin for error when you play these top level, like the top 4 elite teams in the world, Barcelona, Lyon, Chelsea, and Orlando Pride, obviously, when you play those 4 teams, you just don't have any margin for any real error. So the Yui Hasegawa freak unlucky own goal, that will undo you. And so now you have this and you have this big disappointment, and now it's okay. Everybody try to forget about that and play a Champions League match. I don't feel wonderful about it.
Yeah, I think I've kind of landed on both sides of this because I think you look at the City lineup, they clearly wanted that one bad. For whatever reason. They wanted to win. They came ready to win. They played really well, to your point, and then fell short. So there is the possibility that now you run it back versus this Chelsea side, and they're a little bit of like Barca, Madrid. They're kind of in your head a little bit, and you got to kind of overcome that mentally. The flip side, we see this obviously in college football too. Tough to beat a team, multiple times in a year. When there are high stakes. You could imagine that maybe City learned some stuff here. Obviously, the Fujino goal was amazing, but it could just be that Chelsea kind of has their number. When you look at Chelsea, I kind of think one player that, is an entertaining watch for sure, just because she'll just like she'll do whatever, rip it from anywhere, Shukaduskin. I think once you get past that part, she's a really solid player in the defensive midfield. She's just always in tough spots. She's just an extra defender. Like it's almost like in the NBA where there's like doubles happening everywhere, and just like somebody sliding over to kind of like double and just wreaking havoc. That's what she does on the pitch. From her spot, she's sliding into places. She's disruptive, and then offensively, she's really smart and really good and really accurate. So she's a dangerous player, and that Chelsea side just loaded. It could just be that from an injury standpoint, maybe too much to overcome for City. But I am kind of holding out hope because this is much like Bayern versus Lyon. This is a spot where, I don't know, City can kind of like make a stand here and be like, hey, things haven't gone to plan a little bit. We're not just going to roll over, lose at home, and then just kind of show up at Stamford Bridge and, just for the formality of getting beat and exiting this tournament in a little bit of disarray. So I don't know. I think there's a chance that they kind of make a stand here.
I like it. I like where your head's at. I'm trying to go back just to make sure that I fact checked myself correctly. I mean, I'm almost certain. Yeah. So when City got the massive win over Barcelona, that was at home. That was at Joy Stadium. They've shown the ability. Carlo, our pal Carlo, asks the $1 million question is, what is Bunny Shaw's status for the Chelsea match? And my expert analysis journalism answer is, I don't know. It's hard to find. Sometimes it's hard to find injury status for women's teams. I haven't heard anything. She wasn't even available in the bench for the League Cup. I don't know if that was just purely, hey, keep resting, and then we'll see if you can give it a go for the Champions League. I am not aware to this point, and she obviously looms large over this in terms of giving yourself chances to score goals. Unless I'm totally spacing on this, I don't even think Guerolin made an appearance, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if you can get her out there, to see what she can do. But I think with Guerolina, she's kind of getting like up to speed and understanding how she fits in the offense. Our pals over at Shades of Blue podcast, and anybody who appreciates Manchester City Football Club, you should immediately check out the Shades of Blue podcast. Or if you like football in any way, men's or women's, they do great stuff over there. Our pal Crunk Chocolate over there mentioned that Guerolin has been a little wasteful with some possessions in her time in the NWSL, and that the way that kind of translates is in the WSL. When Guerolin played for North Carolina Courage, and there's this, they play this wide open in general. Let me back up. Let me make sure I'm making some sense here. In the NWSL, you typically have more possessions to try to play with. So even though the Courage play a little bit more of a possessive style, the game itself, the tenor of those matches themselves are a little more up and down. In the WSL, it is typically a slower pace, and you don't have as many possessions. And so what he pointed out about Guerolin is that in some of her possessions over here for City, she has been a little wasteful at times. And if you do that against Chelsea, you might just get smacked. So I wonder, I got to think she has to make an appearance because she is a genius footballer. She's a great player. You got to get her in the game. But I wonder if that was part of the decision to not play her in that League Cup final. And there's only one way to find out what's going to happen, and that's to watch the match on Wednesday.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Guerolin is a really interesting potential difference maker because it's not a player that Chelsea will have seen to date. And shout out to Carlo in the chat. Chelsea's bench is the difference. Totally agree.
Absolutely.
From a depth standpoint, when you can start Myra, LJ, Macario, and JRK, and then you've still got Wrighton, Aggie Beaver-Jones. You've got tons of people to go to. I think there was talk too that I wish I could fact check this. And apologies again, we're in live mode here, but I think there was talk about Mia Fischel.
Fischel was on the bench.
Kerr. Okay, so Fischel, yeah. So this is the rich get richer for sure. So I think from a option standpoint, from a depth standpoint, they really, really make it tough. Much like my Orlando Pride, when you could bring players in the last 20 minutes and you've sort of given your best to just kind of hold, and now they're bringing players that can come over the top, can really, really make it tough. And I think the Bunny Shaw point, watching her kind of against Chelsea and how organized they were, Millie Bright made it difficult. I think Bjorn's been really good in that spot, kind of like, maybe holding that spot for Germa, we'll see. And then I think Hannah Hampton as well. I think those three in the center there, if that's who starts, I think they show really, really good. What's the word I'm looking for? Really good discipline defensively. So they're not going to give you something. They're not going to give you a cheapie. Which is maybe why a Caroline could kind of come in and dazzle a little bit. Some smoke and mirrors, and now maybe they can snatch an early lead.
Yeah, a live fact check here. So Fischl was on the bench for the League Cup final, but when naming the Champions League squads, Bonpastor included Sam Kerr, but had to leave Fischl out. This is according to the BBC. And Bonpastor said it was, quote, a difficult decision. I believe that to an extent. I'm not so sure how difficult a decision it ever is to leave Sam Kerr if you have the option to put her on your squad. I don't know. I trust Sonia Bonpastor, obviously, but if a doctor looks at me and says, I think Sam Kerr can go, it wouldn't be that difficult of a decision for me to put her in the squad. So, and Carlo points out in the chat, girl Wrighton will be missed. She came back from international duty with a back injury. We haven't even really seen anything from Germa. Kira Walsh picked up a knock. She missed a couple games. It's just like they have this weird revolving door. But back to Carlo's point, the revolving door, even though you have great players walking out, you have these other great players walking in. It's a hell of a revolving door to be involved in your club.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. Toros points out Neem Charles used to come back at left back, push Baltimore up the field. Now you have another attacking player potentially in Baltimore. Neem Charles. Oh, I always appreciate how Charles plays. I think she's really good.
Yeah.
And then also reminds us that Micah Hamano plays for this team.
And of course.
Just another, wizard that you can bring in that could change the game. Now, are you ready to make a prediction? I think I'm ready. I've got where I want to go with my prediction, and I'm happy to go first or second. I leave it up to you.
All right, go ahead. Go first.
Okay, I think I'm going to, Chelsea's going to have the second one at home. So, and I don't feel like mentally they're any kind of intimidated by this City squad, the City side. Now, City, on the other hand, this is sort of like kind of last stand territory. When you were on the Shades of Blue podcast, everybody should go check out that episode for sure. It aired last week. Very insightful stuff there. I think City on the brink or maybe at risk of losing out on a Champions League spot, I think maybe changes a little bit of the geometry. And now I think they might be looking at this one like, we need to do something. we need to stop the bleeding. We need to kind of, reestablish. This is a team that beat Barcelona in the group stage not that long ago. A couple injuries ago, and it feels like a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. This is a team that, at their best, can play with any team. Even a little bit shorthanded because they've got a great 11, they've got a great 12, 13 that can really play. So I think that they make a stand here. I'm going to say 1-1 at City, and this one goes back to the bridge with Chelsea still needing some work to do.
Okay, I love it. For anybody who watched our knockout stage preview, I did, full of bluster and confidence, pick City to go through. So in the interest of, I think in the journalism industry, or at least the sports talking head industry, I think it's referred to as take integrity. In the interest of that, I am going to take, because that fluky goal off of Hasegawa, I'm going to take Manchester City Football Club 2, Chelsea 1. And it's going. Do I feel great about it? No, but I picked them to get through in the preview episode. So Carlo, don't yell at me. But and I'll say City wins 2-1 at home, and it's a Miedema game. Miedema comes out and is an absolute force. Because to be just totally honest with you, that I think that's what it'll take for them to beat him. I think it'll have to be supernova Miedema time.
Yeah, they need it, and she could do it. I think in spots she's looked really, really good. The exact right kind of player that you need to dominate stretches of this match, to kind of stay in it, or to your point, even get a big win here.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I got to tell you, live producing on the show or just our friendship in general, I have so many meetings and important things to do at work tomorrow and Wednesday. I'm watching all of these matches after work, so no spoilers in full effect, please.
Okay, spoiler-free zone. Gotcha. All right, quick look ahead. Match week 2 in the NWSL coming up after all of this tasty Champions League action that we're going to get midweek this week. Some big ones. North Carolina Courage host your Seattle Reign. Washington Spirit host KC Current. Shout out to KC Flippenful, you already know. Gotham FC host my double-winning champion Orlando Pride. That's going to be exciting. And then, I think we'll be back after the first leg of this quarterfinal Champions League. We'll have some takes. We'll have some thoughts that we'll share. Not sure if we're going to go live. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Stay tuned for that. But with that said, anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
Did you say who the Washington Spirit are playing? Did I miss that?
Yeah. KC Current. Yep. Shout out our friend of the show, new friend of the show, Flip and Phil. You already know.
Of course, and Gulshan, obviously from Washington D.C. So now
I missed that.
We have 2 ships on a collision course here. So I'm looking forward to it.
Love it. All right, this has been another episode of Into the Channel, a live episode of the channel. Thank you for hanging out. If you enjoyed the show or love one football as much as your boys do, make sure you're kicking with us each and every single week. Like if you liked, subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. Links to all of our socials, except one, in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for never being afraid to do it live. My guy, I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We got, what is it? Let's do the math. 180 times 2. Oh boy, me trying to do live math on the show. What are 4 matches of 360 minutes of football coming up in the next 2 days? Very much looking forward to it. It really wasn't that hard of math to do now that I look back at it. It's okay. This is why we record the show usually, so Dino can make me look like not such an idiot. But we appreciate you guys for rocking with us, and we will talk to you all next time.